BPod Studios.
This is Talkin Rock. Talkin Rock. Your backstage pass to some of your favorite rock artists. Here's your host, Meltdown.
Back at it for another Friday installment of Talkin Rock with Meltdown. And today, Piggy D is my guest. Piggy was with Rob Zombie for many years, I think close to 20, around 17, 18, something like that. Of course, bandmate with Detroiter John 5 as well. So, we'll talk about that. John 5 actually gave me a couple of questions. Ash Costello from New Year's Day, who's toured many times with Piggy, gave me some questions as well. We'll get to that coming up here, too. As far as his internet series, Metal and Monsters, really cool. Great vibe to it, man. I really liked watching the episodes that I saw. We talk about that, talking about, playing with Manson versus playing with Rob Zombie. And, of course, going to get a little horror movie talk as well. So, Piggy D, it's all about him and his life and his experiences on this non-award-winning episode of Talkin Rock. Of course, the tour is starting up. Is he ready to hop back out on the road?
I think so, yeah. I don't know. We're pretty well rehearsed at this point, and yeah, should be good. It's always a fun stop up there. It's a rock and roll state, always has been. So
yeah, you've had some great shows up here in the past, and I know that the Manson show is sold out here in Detroit coming up on Sunday, so that should be jam packed with people hanging off the rafters.
Yeah, very excited. It'd be great.
Yeah, what's the difference between playing on stage with Manson versus Rob, or is it all kind of the same?
No, they're extraordinarily different. I've talked about this before, but my role on stage with Rob was very much that of an entertainer. We rehearsed so much that musically we didn't really have to think about what we were doing. And it was about engaging with the audience and bringing the songs to life and bringing the show to life and the character of the theme of the whole thing. Manson is a songbook, and you're playing a songbook. You're playing songs that, resonate with a wide variety of us. And it's just it's a different show. It's a different experience. And it's a different approach to playing the music. I'm thinking about what I'm doing playing Manson songs. I was not thinking about what I was doing playing zombie songs. I was thinking about what the next change is, or I'm also was fully engaged with the audience. I was in people's faces. I was singing along with them. It was just a completely different experience.
Yeah. Never having been on stage or done what you've done, obviously, in the past. The choreography between both the shows is different as well, right? I mean, you don't want to be in front of certain screens or when there's pyro going off or anything like that, right?
Yeah, pyro was something you needed to pay attention to for sure.
Yeah, James Hetfield will tell you all about that.
And honestly, after doing it, I've been in some intense bands and that were intense live bands. Amen being one, a long time ago. So having done that and all through the 90s in bands no one ever, will know of, it's nice to play songs at this point and not have to. As much as I enjoyed being the cheerleader and the entertainer, it's nice to be a musician at this point and focus on the parts and playing well with the band and the energy of that. One's not better than the other. They're just completely different. It's a different approach to performing music. And at almost 50 and having I've been playing music since I was 15 years old, like playing gigs. It's just nice. It's well timed. It's part of whatever is to be of a segue, I guess. But
Yeah. I was talking to Tom Hunting from Exodus the other day, and he was talking about the incestual nature of some of the bands, like from his area and his era and stuff like that. And it's kind of almost the same thing, with you and John 5 and Manson and Zombie and maybe even Ozzy in there as well.
Yeah, very strange, right? I remember being out with Amen in Europe, and when John left Manson in 2003 or whatever that was, and I remember there being talk then about who was going to be the guitar player that replaced John in the band. And somebody approached me about it at one point. I don't even remember the circumstances of it, but I thought that's crazy. Like who and I had just seen the Golden Age show at Donington. Amen had played with them. And so it's incestuous, but it's also just small townish. Mm-hmm. It's been the same knuckleheads, and in Tom's case, he's right. Like that region of musicians, they've all, I'm sure somebody slept with somebody's sister at some point. It's a small town.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that. So we switch off from guitar to bass and all this stuff. When does that happen?
I didn't play bass in a band until I joined Rob's band. In fact, I turned gigs down playing bass. I just didn't have any interest. I've always been a guitar player. I've always thought like a guitar player. I have a weird series of influences. I play, and I'm just kind of all over the map. But I never. It's funny, even in Rob's band, just the structure of that music, the bass almost always followed the guitar. Like that was just the core. That was just the sound from White Zombie that had carried into how those songs were arranged. So it was kind of like I was still a guitar player. It was just lower, So and again, where it differs is Manson's music is a lot of the bass parts that Twiggy wrote. They're bass parts. They're not following the guitar. The guitar is fucking in outer space. The bass is holding it down. And that's where the gig differs, I guess, is it's just in the composition of the music. Even it's a different approach to bass. So having played bass for 20 years, now I actually feel like I'm playing the bass.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I never thought about that before you mentioned it, but yeah, it does, like White Zombie and stuff, it does kind of follow along with the guitar. Yeah. And it's funny because Zombie and Manson have played here many times, and just off the top of my head, there was a few instances here, obviously that about where the Manson had blow-ups on stage and whatnot. I remember watching Rob. I think the time that we may have met, Rob walked out on the side of the stage to watch a little-known band called Greta Van Fleet play, and they were just starting out, and there was a huge buzz about those guys. So you've had some really killer shows here in Michigan.
In fact, my first Zombie recording. No, that's not true. The first thing I did was a song for a Punisher movie called War. It was called Warzone. The first full-length record I played on was a record we recorded at Pine Knob called Zombie Live. Mm-hmm. And we did it there because obviously it was the best crowd in the country for a live record. I mean, we couldn't think of a better place to do it. So I remember Scott Humphrey and the producers came out and had a truck, and we recorded the show, and we were super tight. And so to your point of having some good shows there, we've done live albums there because of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Godsmack recorded a live record there. There's been a couple others as well. There's something about this town, like AC/DC is playing here on Wednesday. It's like they don't really play, during the week in certain places. But I guess in Detroit, you can sell out Ford Field on a Wednesday. You go play.
That's something to do. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are playing here Sunday, like I was mentioning. Hey, if you want to join me earlier in the day, I'm walking 1,000 steps across the street at Comerica Park. It's for charity if you want to join.
Oh, how cool. How cool.
That's good for you. Association and stuff, so we'll probably do that and then maybe head over and see you guys. But John 5 is from here, and he wanted me to ask you about let's see, John 5. Oh, the legend of Old Sockneck.
John 5's the only red-blooded man I know that has successfully worn the sock as a choker. He accessorizes like no one else. We're all going to remember him when he goes to his great reward for his guitar playing, but I'm going to remember him as someone who could accessorize like a motherfucker.
Have you been over to see his Kiss collection?
I've watched it get pieced together just in the lobby of the lounge of the tour bus over the last 20 years. And you have to really love something.
Mm.
I love weird niche things, too. But where he's operating with that is on another level. And some of the stuff in there, like I would be surprised if Kiss even knew some of that stuff existed. Like, and it's all legitimate. Like it's real. Like it's crazy. But to know the rocks to turn over to find that stuff, like that's a whole nother game, my friend. And he is, John Five's Kiss collection cannot be messed with.
Are you when you were on tour and stuff, and he would get like something or whatever? Would he come in and like show it off, like show and tell to everybody? Or
yeah, because there was always like some dude in a weird vintage bootleg, Mexican Kiss shirt that was impossible to find standing in the hallway. And you'd be like, oh, that must be John's friend, He found the teal one or whatever it was, he found the, oh, I have all but the purple one. And that guy had found the purple one. So yeah, it's been something to watch it come together. And, what a cool thing if you to put the time and energy into cataloging something like that. That's not something that's ever going to happen in our lifetimes ever again. What that band did.
Yeah.
Like that happened with the Beatles and it happened with Kiss from a merchandising standpoint.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Did Kiss, was that your gateway to rock and roll?
It was a big one. Yeah. I have an older brother and he, that was his band.
Okay.
And he was a drummer and I walked into the room. I remember being very, very little and seeing Gene on the wall behind a massive drum kit and just thinking like, what the hell is going on in here? And it wasn't until like, I always thought it was cool. My brother would show me videos. And I remember that day, he came home from work or whatever. And he was like, hey man, sit down. I got something to tell you. And I was like, oh shit, did grandpa die? Like what happened? And he's like, I don't know how to say this, man. Kiss took their makeup off. And I remember being like, no, and I didn't even understand the magnitude of it then, but yeah, it was a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's almost like, hey, I got something to tell you. Metallica cut their hair.
Oh, the haircut heard around the world.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those. But I think, Kiss really clicked for me at such a weird time. I found the home videos, like the Kiss Exposed, Extreme Close Up, Kiss Confidential, those home videos they put out.
Yeah. And
I watched those things religiously. And that's really where, especially when they started sharing some of their home recordings and stuff, like with them filming on the road, where you really saw what a gigantic arena band looked like backstage. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating to me. And that was like around, I remember when Revenge came out, I was like, oh man, they're still a really good band.
It's a great record. Yeah.
It's a fantastic record. And great songs, great production. They both have great moments. Everybody has a great moment on that record. And I was like, this is, makeup or no makeup, they're still a really ripping band. This is really cool music. And then when the reunion tour came, when they did the reunion tour in '96, and I could finally see them, that was at the height of my fandom actually for them. So that I was in heaven with that show. So
another tour that started here.
Yeah, that's right. Like famously started there because there's footage of that show.
Yep.
Um, and it's been cool too. Like through John, Peter came around and saw us a bunch with Zombie, and we played. We got on stage one night in Jersey, did God of Thunder with Peter, with two drum kits, which was super cool. And Peter's sitting on a slamming record himself.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm really psyched for him. I know it's a record he's wanted to make for a long time, and he wrangled a lot of the troops, and everyone got behind it, and it rocks, man. I'm really I'm really psyched for him.
Yeah, Five is on that, and Billy Sheehan, an old Buffalo boy. I recorded my first demo tapes to get on the radio back in the Stone Age with the singer of Talus. So I don't know if you remember Talus.
Yeah, of course. Wow.
A lot of connections. But hey, you just mentioned that, you collect niche stuff. What kind of stuff do you got? Do you got like the old monsters or something? What do you have?
I have yeah, I've got some I guess it's pretty staple guy growing up in the 80s stuff, but like I've lived through some natural disasters, but one of the things that survived is like some Star Wars figures and, childhood stuff like that. But the thing that I've probably got the most of is T-shirts. I have the John 5 Kiss collection of T-shirts. And at one point it was 2 storages. It was too much. I've had to start thinning it out. But I have the first Jaws shirt from that I had in 1977.
Wow.
When I was 2. I still have it. Like for some reason, those things have survived all of the chaos of my life. I've lived through floods and hurricanes and all kinds of stupid shit. And in my T-shirt collection, I think I have it's well over 1,000 at this point, but I've started cataloging it. And several years ago, when I got into wardrobe design for people like Alice and some other bands, I wound up with a lot of like weird one-off sample things that were demoed and made for people. So the collection really runs the gamut from like my work in wardrobe and fashion stuff, me as a concert goer, me as a toddler. Like it's, I don't know. Of what use is it? I don't know yet. It may just be a really great reference book for people who design T-shirts like me.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's pretty worthless.
I love talking to guys like you that, that kind of, I'm a few years older than you, but we all grew up kind of in the same era and stuff. And you just mentioned Kiss and, and you toured with Zombie and now you're with Manson and whatnot. And then you talked about, Alice Cooper. What was it like to work with Alice Cooper? I mean, obviously probably another childhood hero of yours.
Yeah, I was so into music. I had such I knew every word of Fiddler on the Roof. I knew show tunes. In like 1987, I got super into Quincy Jones. So I studied Quincy Jones records. I loved Megadeth. I loved punk rock. I loved gospel music. I loved country music. I loved everything. I had no prejudice whatsoever. But when I saw Alice Cooper when I was 14, it changed everything. And that was the moment where I was like, well, I have to figure out how to be a part of this. I was so inspired. And I remember the next day after the show, I went to the mall and I started buying the early records. Mm-hmm. I started at like Pretties for You. I went like early. And as I could afford it, I started collecting all the records. And by the time I was like 16, I knew more about Alice Cooper than I knew about myself. And he at that point too, he was very open about like his sobriety and his faith and all of these things. And he was such a great role model for a kid who really could have gone off the rails in high school. And Dave Mustaine was another a great example too, because at the time he was sober and he was very talkative about it, and I was a huge Megadeth fan. And those two guys were my superheroes. So I had such great role models through high school. So to be able to have anything to do with either one of them ever in the rest of my life was such a unique experience and a unique blessing. Alice and I've like I've mentioned earlier, I did a lot of wardrobe for him and his band over the years. My team designed all of his merch for several tours. We've written music together. We released a Halloween song. We haven't, and because of that Halloween song, we actually went and did a whole record that never came out. It's basically mixed sitting in a vault, and it rips. And we
so wait. What year was that, and who's on that album? Like player.
It was it was a Halloween song.
Early 2000s, right?
No, it's like 20. I don't know. It's all running together for me. I have to pull it up. It was around whenever Keeping Halloween Alive came out. It was the following year. So basically, we recorded that song. That was the weirdest thing ever. I remember flying home from being in Texas, and I got home and I had this idea. Alice has never had a Halloween song. So I emailed him and I said, hey, you never did an official Halloween song. He's like, you know what? You're right. Let's put something together. So we did. And 2 days later, we were tracking the song in the studio. And in the 4 days after that, it was on iTunes. It was the craziest thing I've ever done. It came together so fast. I called two friends of mine that I knew could knock it out on drums and guitar, and we went in and cut the song super fast. Alice flew in, sang it, flew home. It was crazy. So a few months later, it kind of came after it had been out. They approached me about just doing some more. And so for a few months, we went out and just met up and wrote songs and recorded it at home. And it's not knowing Alice Cooper music as much as I do. I really like the record. It's really honest. What was cool to see is that there's not a lot of, it's still written from an Alice character standpoint, but it's very real. He's talking about things that he really wanted to talk about. And some of it's veiled in comedy and some of it's veiled in satire, like he does. He's such a fantastic lyric writer. I mean, he's one of the greatest living lyric writers that we've got and always has been, I think. But it was cool to see him go, you know what really pisses me off? This. And he would write about it and watch him do it. And I was just like, God, man, how you can connect your heart to your hand and get it out like that was really something to witness. So he's got my money whenever he does anything. I'm a fan. One of these days we'll get that record out. Every time we see each other, we go, we got to get that record out. And I've since run into, it was me and him and an engineer. That was it. There were the only three people in the room. And so would that made it untainted. Mm-hmm. And what was funny was at the time his band was Damon Johnson, Kerry Kelly, Chuck, Eric Singer, all slamming players. And all those guys had amazing songs. And I, at one point, reached out to them and I'm like, hey, what do all you guys have? And they all I had dozens of songs, some that he had sung on that they had recorded on the road. And God bless, he has always curated a band of extreme talent. Yeah. Like everybody gave me songs and I was like, holy shit, man. It's like the Super Friends or something. It was like everybody had a skill. So he's always surrounded himself with amazing people and,
Yeah, maybe it's all bottled up inside them because they're playing all these Alice Cooper classics every single night. It's like, maybe it just inspires them to do some other stuff when they're not on the stage.
For sure. As they say, if you put good things in, you get good things out, right? And that's just great rock and roll. It's well written, well crafted, well produced music, and has stood the test of time.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny you mentioned it. You Alice as a 14-year-old kid, and you were so inspired. I was about 14, and I was watching the Halloween show from right here in Detroit while I grew up in Western New York. And who would have thunk that, 11 years later, I'd be coming here to start my career in riff, and 29 and a half years, almost to the day, I'm still here. It's kind of crazy.
Wow. Isn't it crazy? That's, again, another great example of how you can kind of will things into existence if you really want to. If you just don't get it right,
Well, when I knew I was talking to you, I had to reach out to your friend Ash, and so she gave me a bunch of questions. No. Actually, more than I thought she was going to. All right, are you ready for this?
I don't think so, but go ahead.
All right, which character would you play in Rocky Horror?
See, she knows me really well. It would be Frankenfurter. That's on the bucket. I would cut my hair and do some sit-ups for Frankenfurter.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Favorite quote from Quackbusters?
There's too many. If you don't know Quackbusters, you've really fucked up. Quackbusters is an 80s compilation of Looney Tunes cartoons in the form of Ghostbusters. So they took classic Looney Tunes cartoons and they threaded them together with this new narrative, and there's some new animation in there. And if it's one of those things, if you know, then you know. But it is an hour and something of solid Looney Tunes gold. And Ash is actually one of the only other people that I've ever met that remembers or was equally as obsessed with that videotape. So for no other reasons other than the Haxons existing for 2 albums, it was worth it because I found the other person that likes that Looney Tunes movie.
There you go.
It was only worth it for that. Then it was fun. I'm fine with it.
All right, let's see here. What band were you the most sick of her playing in the tour in the truck?
I don't know. She's actually a pretty good DJ. I can't pick on her too much. I think she probably got tired of like my, I'm a Goo Goo Dolls fan from like junior high school. And I love the early, like the Metal Blade records.
Yeah.
In fact, I've always wanted to get in a time machine and go back and be in that band. So I think I probably drove her crazy with my early Goo Goo Dolls, or, I don't know.
Yeah.
We both meet up on Huey Lewis and the News. We both share that too. So there was a lot of Huey going on that tour.
Yeah, growing up in Buffalo, I knew a lot about the Goo Goo Dolls. I worked with Robbie, and then I remember Johnny walked in one day, and I accidentally had played Name, and it wasn't even released as a single yet. And he kind of gave me this look. He's like, thanks, man. Like, like I had nothing to do with it becoming a hit, but he was definitely not impressed that I played it on accident.
Wow, that's funny. What a funny story. But I remember, like, I'm from Houston originally, and they came through and they tried to play a couple shows, and I remember the shows getting canceled. It was like 5 of us had bought tickets, and we finally got to see them, and with 20 of our closest friends. And then when that song came out, it was the next time I saw them, they were in an arena with Bush and No Doubt. Everything changed. Yeah. Everything changed.
They played a place in Buffalo called the Continental all the time.
I've played the Continental. I love that. Robbie worked there, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, we was a bar back or something like that. I think Johnny Chow maybe even worked there. You know Chow?
Yep, that's right. He did. I didn't realize you were from Buffalo. That's funny. That's one of my favorite cities.
Yeah. Like I said, I moved here in 1995, so I guess you can actually call me a Detroiter. I even have my Detroit D that, I got tattooed on my arm. But
yeah, you're Detroit now.
Yeah. So she also wanted me to ask you, what is the thing? with capital letters, The Thing.
If I told people what The Thing was, I would destroy that business. I mean, if you've ever driven down across the country, I-10 through New Mexico and Arizona, and you've seen the billboards for The Thing, you have to stop and see The Thing, exit 45 or whatever it is. Don't miss The Thing. If I reveal that here,
you kill them. Kill the
business. I'm going to ruin Christmas for those guys. They're not going to sell T-shirts or shot glasses or anything. It's over.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. So
I can't do that. But Ash and I stopped and we saw The Thing, and I got to tell you, it's a thing.
Now I'm curious. I may have to Google that later. But hey, you did that. Are you still doing the miniseries, the monsters and music and stuff?
No, Metal and Monsters. No.
That was great. The couple episodes I saw, and it's so funny because, like, I was telling somebody about this. It has this certain feel and this certain vibe. You know, I grew up in the '80s. You know, like I was saying, and I saw Nightmare before. You know, I saw the Freddy and Halloween in the theaters with my friends. I saw Trick or Treat in the theater. I saw all those movies in the theaters when they first came out, and it just kind of like it just encapsulates this feeling watching your series.
That was the feeling we were trying to bottle and sell.
Yeah,
that's exactly what that was. So I'm glad that read. I'm the same kid growing up with the same things, and I miss it. I miss the simplicity of, oh, the new Friday the 13th is coming out. You know, let's all go see it and talk about it Monday morning. I miss the unity that came with celebrating the product that is corporate media. I mean, it's basically what it was, right? But I miss it. I miss the hangout. I don't miss the mall, but I miss the mall. Mm. You know what I mean? I miss that, like that. I mean, I guess we still all do it. Did everybody watch White Lotus? I guess it's still the same thing. But when you're a kid and you have that moment that you can bond with the other kids at school or whatever in your neighborhood, and the new whatever records out, the new Metallica records out, or then like we all would rally around a thing and talk about it for a minute and absorb it and pick on it, but whatever, we were talking about it, right? It brought us together, and I miss that. And that's what the spirit of that show was. That spirit of that show was, let's get back to that, even if it's just for an hour. You know, let's talk to Kirk, but we don't have to talk about Metallica. Let's talk about like what his favorite movies are and why. Let's get under the hood of that. It was about those kind of conversations. You know, how great a band is Carcass and how we're not talking about it. You know, like it was such a cool opportunity to be able to shed light on things that I've been able to celebrate my whole life, and that my like-minded producers were so into. That was such a labor of love, that show. I
know I'm probably going to regret this question because we could probably go on and on and on. But what was the last great horror movie you saw, like the newer ones? I just saw Sinners, for example, last week.
Oh, I hear that's really good.
It was good. It was actually kind of weird. It was kind of like a period piece for like the first hour, and all of a sudden it just escalated quickly.
That's what I hear. I'm excited to see that because it seems like something from left field. You know, I guess it's kind of a tried answer because it was an award winner. But when I saw The Substance last year, I thought, oh boy, you know, what a challenging topic for a horror film. And it was done in such an over-the-top gore fest kind of way to make its point that I thought, and I remember walking out of the theater and I said, if Demi Moore doesn't get nominated for something, then there's just no justice in the world. Like, I remember thinking, what a brave performance that was from her. And to get behind the message of that movie, to get behind the message, I thought, man, what a Christmas gift we didn't know we were getting from the genre film community this year. I was that kind of rekindled my faith in what could be the next wave of thought-provoking modern horror. As much as I'm kind of gushing about the gore of that movie, I actually don't really like gory movies. I don't like senseless murder the Terrifier movies. I have a hard time getting through the first one. I can't. I love the fact that there's an Art the Clown. I love it. I love the fact that we can still pull a Freddy Krueger out of the ethos for all of us to go, isn't that crazy? I love that we can still do that. I personally, I can't get through it. They're too much for me. I don't know. Maybe I've just gotten soft, but.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll leave it there. Don't get soft on us. We'll see you on Sunday here in Detroit Rock City.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Piggy, great to talk to you, man. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, man. Good to see you.
Once again, punch up the interview on YouTube and at WRAF.com. You can watch this interview if you so desire. Got to thank Piggy D for taking the time out to talk with me earlier this week. That interview comes courtesy of my friend David Ellefson, who got me hooked up. Of course, we talked with David last week, but I had a chance to meet Piggy D. I think it was around 2018 or something like that. He was touring with Rob Zombie, and I was talking with John Five and him. And he's just one of these guys, like right away, he's like, this guy's a good dude. So it was great to touch base and actually interview him for the first time. So got to thank him. And like I said, David for hooking it up. In the meantime, we'll do it all over again next week. Got some interviews kind of in the hopper. I've got some pretty cool ones coming up here down the pike. But next week, we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for checking out Talkin Rock. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you for listening to Talkin Rock with Meltdown. You can help this podcast grow by giving it a 5-star rating and writing a review on Apple and iTunes. Plus, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. Until next time, thanks for listening to Talkin Rock.